What's going on, everybody? It's Frito here for Clickheads. Many pros, analysts, and players alike have had a low view on Phoenix, but now that TSM in the past few weeks have been cleaning up all of the tournaments almost, with no win bigger than the matchup up against the team many assumed were number one, T1, beating them both in the upper bracket finals and the grand finals, taking 4 maps to 1, at some point we all are going to have to wise up to TSM defining the Valorant meta for now, and a big part of that in their gameplay is the use of Phoenix in ways that I don't see any other team using. And hey, by the way, if you like these in-depth pro breakdown videos, be sure to hit us with a subscribe and click the bell icon to actually get notified when our videos come live. You can get notifications sent directly to your cell phone by clicking the bell. And if you want to stay updated with the latest pro tactics as well as news in the Valorant community, you're not going to want to miss out. Now, let's get on with the video. Now, the core of mastering Phoenix's gameplay is perfecting the use of Curveball. It's a tricky thing to get right, and when you're suspecting an enemy around a corner, using it in a straight up duel, it can be on a very razor thin margin where we've seen it be rather boom or bust. First, let's set up some ground rules of what Curveball's bad at, so we don't try to use it in spots where it's not going to get the desired effect. Generally speaking, it's not so good for flashing yourself in, which is the major mistake that a lot of us had when we first were learning Valorant. There's a few reasons for this. Because the movement speed in Valorant is slow, and the arc you have to throw the Phoenix flash at is fixed, when the enemy sees the flash come around, they can pretty easily time your own follow-up to chase after that flash. So that, even if they do get blind, it's incredibly easy to line up on the corner and just spray where they know you'll be coming from and kill you anyway. Another problem is because the flash is so short in duration, even if you do get this play to work, the 1.1 seconds of flash hitting multiple targets means that you physically don't have the time to kill multiple blinded enemies in most cases. By the time you secure the first kill, the second player would have regained their sight and will be able to overtake you. It's for these weaknesses that I was nearly making this video to be about hoping that Riot would buff Phoenix, but the problem is that when you use him correctly, well, TSM can dominate in many other instances using his kit. First and foremost reason being, no agent is better at bursting out of a smoke, either your own or the enemy's, than Phoenix can. This is what we can call TSM's typical burst execution, where they either use their own smoke to mask their positioning getting up close to a corner, or use an enemy smoke against them. Here, the Cypher Cage is completely useless and in fact masks the curveball itself. You do this by standing right in the center of a smoke so that the big arcing animation that normally is very telegraphed from the curveball is hidden until it pops out of the smoke. This completely changes how you interact with this type of utility. Because smokes block line of sight of flashes, it was sort of assumed that flashing with smokes in the way was just not really possible. But Phoenix breaks those rules. You can see him here, standing right in the center of the Cyber Cage, flashes out, and backs up into it so he doesn't get hit by his own flash, then turns around in order to take the duel. Now, the flash duration isn't very long, so this Cypher is able to get back around corner, but the problem is, with so many members of TSM bursting in at once, it's incredibly hard once he has to retreat onto a passive angle for him to spray down multiple members. Even as weak as the flash is in terms of the blind duration, the speed of this just clears off the space and opens the floodgates for TSM to rush in. So whereas in a lot of isolated duels around corners, the flash feels not very good, up against enemy utility, Curveball is amazing. Here, Cloud9's Omen player is trying to help his friendly Sage by placing down a smoke, hoping that it'll delay the push, but in fact, it just masks the entry for the Curveball to be completely safe. Because remember, when you're standing in the smoke, you can't get flashed by Curveball, which means you can safely toss it out like Stewie 2K, then run in after it. Using it this way flips the concepts of what we traditionally assumed was a very defensive meta in Valorant. In fact, when you start to add them up, there's so many smokes that you now can completely outplay and are no threat to you whatsoever. In fact, they're a benefit to you because it can set up for a perfect Curveball. And note, no other agent really can replicate this play because Reyna Lear won't continuously blind them as they back around the corner. Because smokes are typically in the open, Breach really struggles to try to put a flash that can guarantee line of sight on the enemy when they're watching a smoke. And while there just really isn't any other tools in the game that exist that can even try to replicate this, so Phoenix just wins by default. And although Lear is powerful with this, Curveball is much better up against a defensive crossfire when you're trying to entry like this, blinding multiple players at once with a guaranteed impact. It can't be destroyed, which is why I rate him as the best entry agent right now. Now, the other major way that TSM used Curveball is for team Popflashes. Remember, chasing after your own curveball on a peak is weak and slow, but when you have a teammate do it, it's entirely different. On this window peak, Drone running himself in to take the angle would be slow and cumbersome, and super obvious on the timing like we said before. But notice how Wardell moves in at the same time as the flash so that his line of sight hits exactly when the flash is hitting, giving him an entirely free peak. Now he misses the shot, but that's besides the point. By getting his line of sight on contact immediately, he's able to get the benefit of the full flash duration, whereas Phoenix taking whatever fraction of a second it normally does for him to follow up to reach that same point, well, he's losing some of that 1.1 second of flash duration, right? Whereas when you do it for a teammate with a pop flash, they're able to gain the full benefit. Now, there's only so many aggressive angles you can get this to work on. It's very map specific. Haven is a great one for it, though. You can do it on a long or mid window like we showed, but just like the solo flash, it can be difficult to set up. But remember, it's more about positioning it properly and not expecting it to do more than it can, landing it perfectly, then you get it to work. Got all those other steps to lead up to that. But what's even more powerful that TSM does is these defensive pop flashes, where Drone plays in pairs with a teammate with the curveball at the ready and lets his teammate play what otherwise would be a very dangerous angle. We speak about this a lot, about having like a jet escape to get out of a sticky situation. Well, when Drone pairs up with a teammate like this, it allows a character like Sage to play what should be, by all rights, a one and done angle. This is not going to be the standard spot that the enemies check, so he should get the first kill, but would be easily traded if not for the timing flash on the point of contact. We even can see that the Cypher appears to be shooting Drone in the standard corner that everybody holds, but with him with the curveball at the ready, Drone can listen for either the footsteps or the gun noises to flash right in the face of everybody, allowing Hayes to get the kill and Drone to follow up with the peek around the corner. Next clip, he does this again for Wardell, who's playing the Sova instead of Jet this time, so to be more safe in this position, those defensive curveballs stop the aggression onto that spot, halt it in its tracks, and punish any trade kills. This is why in my tier list video, I called Phoenix more like an aggressive controller rather than a straight up duelist. I don't think it's entirely accurate to expect him to just be a duelist. I honestly think it's better to think of him more as an aggressive version of Omen rather than a jet duelist, because his actual strength lies in setting up the team position on the map, which I think is further evidenced by the best use of his blaze wall, where here, notice after TSM get garage control, they actually put a deep sky smoke to deny information as they shift up. Remember, they like smokes being close to them, so why not put your own smoke on your approach? This could be their smoke, this could be the enemy smoke, you can do this either way, but notice how he puts the blaze wall to cut through the path to help better mask his approach, as well as completely hide this curveball that comes around the corner to flash anyone that would have been waiting and watching for the burst out of the smoke. There's just no way Skadoodle can react to this. Not possible. And so when we add together Phoenix's wall to slice up the map between the flash entry through a smoke or the wall to cut off line of sight in a favorable way, Phoenix has the most kits in order to interact with the enemy's defenses. Notice how the blaze wall creates a lane, similar to how vertical Sage walls do the same thing on executes, to overtake the C site. And even though he gets flashed by the enemy Phoenix, he's allowed to jump safely to the other side of the wall while still gaining ground. I think a lot of players struggle with being able to get space on the map in Valorant because it is, by design, intended to be defender-sided, but TSM shows us the right tricks to guarantee getting map control. Now, this play was actually a big fake where they used the brim smokes to block off the A short angle while they're actually taking the bomb to hookah, but I'll note that Drone could have blocked off this line of sight himself with his blaze wall, and either way, he's able to get himself into the perfect position to land curveballs around the corner. Phoenix is an agent that needs to be in the perfect spot, But using the tools in the game properly, you can find yourself there more often than not. And with the combination of this utility, you can play in positions that otherwise would be scary for other agents to try, and begin to play mind games with your opponents on when your flash timings are going to come through and what corners you're on that can punish them from aggressing onto you. Here, he uses the blaze wall to get out of what should be a one and done, and when you have perfect control of the engagement, this is where Curveball looks insane, because the closer the enemy is trying to get to your corner, the more likely it is that you're going to be able to quickly peek out after your flash pops to get the full duration of it. Whereas when you try to just straight up dry entry with it, you don't know the angles your opponents are going to be holding and how flashed they might be. Whereas when you're able to set them up perfectly, like this one, you can bait them into trying to take the wide angle off of your tight corner, which normally is strong due to angle advantage, but it becomes weak up against Curveball because it's going to open you up for a guaranteed connection to your face. Now, we spent most of the video talking about Curveball and wall getting space because I think it's the most misunderstood aspects of his kit. The last two elements are a bit better known, but you can see how they add into Phoenix's playstyle and how Drone maximizes it. The fact is, Run It Back is one of the strongest ults in the game. Reason being is that it allows you to use this aggressive map control gaining kit with a free life that either gets you information of where the enemy is and isn't, which is valuable in its own right, or gets you a completely free kill. It's this insanely powerful ultimate that makes up for the other limitations in his kit. Notice how Drone, after waiting out the Sage Slow Orb, acts like the tank of the team, going full Leroy Jenkins, running in head first with Run It Back. This is just free health points in front of the team. Whether he gets a kill or not, this ultimate forces the enemy to decide if they hold that ground, take a duel, potentially losing it, or back up giving the space. Either way, it's a win for TSM. And think about how much utility normally is required to clear this corner. All of a sudden, they have the bomb site with just running the ultimate in dry, and they're left in like a no-win situation. You hide from it and give up space. You try to destroy it and potentially die. It's just insane. And last thing to break down for the video, Phoenix's Molly is very typical for his kits, where the Molly itself isn't necessarily stronger than most mollies, but instead has the flexibility of giving him the chance to self-heal. And because of that, you have a lot of options to either clear corners to help set up favorable duels, cover the bomb in a post plant, or regen your health after taking these aggressive style gun battles. Keep in mind, another good tip is that when you're on low health, it's a good idea to pop Run It Back, as afterwards it will heal you up as well. When you combine with all of these things, Phoenix is an incredibly tanky agent, where he has the tools to get in on space, but also the stats to be able to regen in order to live longer in the round after going for those plays. Meaning that your Sage player can focus on healing other players of your team, gaining a big boon to your ability to go aggressive overall, which I think just sort of sums up TSM's playstyle and meta dominance in a nutshell, which I could go on for days talking about, but I think I'll wrap it up here. Hopefully with these examples, you can learn how to emulate some of the big meta redefining tactics that TSM employs in order to make Phoenix look like a top tier agent in my eyes. I mean, how many tournaments do they have to win until we all just respect that they know something we don't? There's so much guaranteed value you can get out of replicating these plays that before long, I think a lot of players are going to start doing it. And this concept of a defensive hide behind smokes style metagame is just going to be dead in the water because the threat of a flashbang coming for you is way too punishing. But let me know your thoughts on all of this in the comment section down below. If you did enjoy the video, please be sure to hit subscribe and hit the bell icon to actually get notified when our videos go live. Link to the description is our Twitter. Hit us a follow on there. That's been it for me. I've been Frito for Clickheads. We'll see you guys next time.